most importantly, the African unity. Like I normally say, Paul Kagame of Rwanda says, until Africans learn to own their own problems, find their own solutions, they won't be able to write their own stories. That's the essence of the Pan-African Drive, building bridges between and amongst Africans by sharing our commonalities for problems. And for tonight's edition is a very special opportunity for me to be seated here under the sound of your voices to speak to young people, the Student Council leadership of the UTG, the Social Sciences Humanities Students Association leadership seated here tonight to talk to us on the just end elections, and also to talk to a foreign policy specialist from the United Kingdom, a young man who left the shores of the Gambia a few years back to the United Kingdom after a first degree, and then he's not a foreign policy expert. I'm going to be talking to us tonight. But we'll take our short break, and once we return, I introduce the guest to you both nationally and internationally. Salute to you. This edition is proudly sponsored by AfriCell. We'll take our break shortly and get back.
We've got fantastic new social media bundles just for you. Here are your options.
50 megabytes for $10 is valid for 1 day.
Enjoy 400 megabytes for $40, valid for 7 days.
Get a massive 1,200 megabytes for $100 is only, valid for 7 days.
Simply dial *120# and press 3 to pick the social media bundle that suits you best. Subscribe now.
Why settle for one when you can talk with two? With the AfriCell TOK service. For just $99, you get a massive 1,200 minutes of talk time to share between your two favorite people. To activate, dial *135#, select your two AfriCell numbers, and you're locked in for a full month of conversations. AfriCell, connecting you to your peoples.
Welcome back from that short break here on a Pan-African Drive here with me, Tony Michael Howard, CKA News Socrates. And I am surrounded by two intelligent young men from the UTG. That's the University of the Gambia, the state-owned university. They are respective winners of the just end elections of all sorts. That's the Social Sciences and Humanities Students Association of the UTG, and His Excellency elect, Mr. Seni M. Sao, and not forgetting Mohammed Lamin Jallo, who happens to be the information minister. Should I say, Mr. President, you're welcome to the show. It's a beautiful opportunity to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howard. Good to be here once again.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Mr. Jallo, information minister, somebody described you as Pepe. I want to see that tonight. Great to see you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
And not only that, we'd also have Mr. Zindi Anthony Levi, who happens to be the young Gambian foreign policy expert from the United Kingdom. We're going to bring him here on the show tonight. You're going to see him shortly sharing his expertise with these young people. In the second half of the show, he's also going to be speaking on what I call the merits and spoils of our democracy. Mr. Zindi, you're welcome to the show. We're super honored and privileged to have you on the show tonight.
I'm very much delighted to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation from Tony. And I'm looking forward to doing my best to discuss this issue at hand.
That's beautiful. You've heard from the three guests here tonight, one from the United Kingdom, two on my right and left in His Excellency President Seni M. Sahu and the Information Minister, Mr. Jallo, who are here as my guest here tonight on Pan-African Drive. Drive quickly. Just a little above, is it close to 2 weeks when you were here?
Less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks. You were here. I saw the confidence in all of the responses you provided during the debate. But I remotely did not believe that it would have been a landslide victory. What did you do differently that the opposition did not do?
Well, thank you, Mr. Michael. I'm happy to be back here. As I promised that I was going to be here again. We are going to talk about the elections. Okay. And my promise is fulfilled.
Yeah, that's right. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much.
What did you do differently that the opposition did not do?
First of all, I must say thanks to my team. Okay. And thanks to those supporters who believed in us, who gave us their mandate to lead them for the next 12 months in the School of in the Social Sciences and Humanities Students Association. I would start with a quote by one of Africa's prominent writers, Chinua Achebe, who says, a lizard that falls from a high Iroko tree will praise himself even no one praises him. So that is why I want to praise myself and my team for coming out victorious in the one of the most contested UTG elections. When you know SOSA and you know the UTG, you understand that it's very, very tough to contest in an election in SOSA. And coming 11 over 11 in such a style, it's nothing but to be proud of. And one of the things we do is to ensure that we are connected to our electorates. And that's very important. In every democracy and in every governance, leaders must be connected to their electorates. How are they connected to their electorates? By ensuring that the promises made to those electorates, even before elections, are fulfilled.
That was the secret to winning?
It's one of the secrets. So I can tell my opponents that it's important to fulfill promises.
You don't have an opponent.
I had an opponent. So
you
now
don't have an opponent.
Moving on.
You don't have an opponent. You had.
I had an opponent.
Okay, that holds you there to the Minister for Information. What was the secret behind this overwhelming victory?
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael. So with regards to the victory, we cannot do it alone. It is with the people. We did it with the people. We did all we could, but it would have never been possible without the people. And how was it possible? We are always with our mantra. That is our motto. PATH. P-A-T-H. Progressive, accountable, trust, and honesty to the electorates. Last year, we won 11 out of 11. And we won, and the promises, all promises made were fulfilled. For the first time in the history of SOSA, we were able to have printing and photocopying machines. And SOSA students do not go to outside other schools to print their works. For the first time in the history of SOSA, we also brought scholarship opportunities and internship. So when we came again this year, we told them we promised yet delivered. And we are here again to promise and then deliver again. They trust us, and then they gave us their mandate.
That's beautiful. Let me hear a bit from someone who is an experienced SOSA affiliate from the United Kingdom, even though part two of this conversation, he's going to be heavily part of that. But let me listen. Zindi Anthony Levi, you're a young Gambian there in one of the most popular nations of the world, in the United Kingdom. But SOSA is not strange to you. What's your thought about the just ended elections that ended with SOSA winning a landslide victory, 11 over 11? What do you say to these young people tonight?
I'll start by saying congratulations to them, because they have really done a great job to take up the mantle of leadership in SOSA. It is rather a great opportunity to have them on board, because I was part and parcel of the 14th Executive Council of SOSA. Amazing. As a sport minister at the time. And pretty much the first trophy that I was actually won in terms of football for SOSA, I was part and parcel of that team, and I was captaining the team. And I'm also all-time leading goal scorer of SOSA. I guess most of them will not know.
Congrats.
But if they tend to do a bit of research, they will actually hear my name so much. I just want to say it's very much good to engage in such extracurricular activities within the University of the Gambia, especially School of Art, most especially SOSA. I feel like it's the first breeding ground for where leaders can be built, and taking up the responsibility and taking up the mantle of providing students of our noble school, we call it Mama SOSA, the opportunities to actually take part in everything that is happening. So I must say kudos to you guys for the effort and for SOSA students believing in you to vote you in the landslide victory. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's a great one here from our guest there, foreign policy specialist from the UK. You can see that the confidence grew very massively when you heard him speak.
Sure,
right. Tell us, the election is over, landslide victory. I want to know something. What was the impression of the electors just when the results were announced?
Wow. Well,
that instance, I want to know.
It was full of jubilation, and the results came, I think, at about 4 a.m. in the morning on Friday. And
were you up?
I was up. Yes, I was up. Actually, I went to sleep after 12 because I believed that I was going to win.
Okay.
Yes, I had the confidence in me that I was going to win the elections. But at 3 some minutes to 4, I woke up to the news about from my polling agent that we are winning from the first polling station, the second one, and then we are only left with the third one, which I knew very well that yes, I'm going to win here. It was met with jubilation, fanfare, merrymaking at the University of the Gambia, Faraba Banta campus, and my family house as well. The family was celebrating at this time. Calls where I was overwhelmed with a lot of calls. And this was a moment for me. It was not just a moment to celebrate, but it was a moment to reflect about the aspiration of the people, the promises we made to the electorates during the campaign, during the class to class, during convention, and even on the TV. What am I going to do to ensure these promises are fulfilled? Those were the moments of reflection for me, and I stand with my team to ensure that we are going to deliver as promised.
We are going to deliver as promised. Your fellow students and voters who made you to have been president today are under the sound of a voice here, as you say, you're going to deliver. Mr. Information Mr. Jallo, why is it that it hasn't changed? I learned, according to the historicity of this very elections, it was you had a replica. What is replicated today happened in the last election, landslide victory. Why is it that the formality hasn't changed? There hasn't been a very competitive election. You had a landslide. Is it that the other people don't have the expertise, or is it that you're doing something differently? What happened?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So with regards to the elections, last year we won 11. This year too we won 11. And there's no magic in it. Because all of us whom you know that we came as candidates from Team Panacea, already we are working in the council. We are either working in the ministry or we are serving as deputies. So we already have the understanding. Not just the understanding, but then Sosans believe in us. They know what we can do because already we've done work. And they've seen us doing it, and then they trust in us, and then they voted for us. So that is the reason. There is no magic in it. They believed in us, and then they gave us their mandate. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Zaindi Anthony Levi, you've been part of this very student body from the UTG. You're now in the UK, master's degree holder in international relations, and you are the best capacity to talk to these young people who are stepping in your shoes. What would be political advice as far as the leadership of all SOSA is concerned? What should they do to ensure that the requisite democratic dividends is provided to those who elected them?
One thing they must need to understand the fact that in within social, the political culture is very good. The political culture is very much massive. Students do hold account to their leaders, and with that being the case, they must understand that delivery is not something that they should be joking with. It's something that they should be putting at the forefront of everything that they are doing. And in terms of accountability, it's something that they need to go back to the people and give them the details about what has happened in within their term of leadership in within SOSA. Because I feel like SOSA is one of the biggest schools, and we have actually produced a lot of leaders who have gone from being leaders at SOSA to being presidents at SU level. So this is the replica that we want to see. Let them not just stop within SOSA, let them take up the responsibility of delivering to students in within our country, but also looking into the SU as another stepping stone into their leadership career in terms of student leadership is concerned.
That's a beautiful one there from you. Most times at this level, with such overwhelming victory, those in the positions of authorities are overconfident. The enthusiasm is massive beyond the boundaries of a thinking being. What should they avoid doing as young leaders so that they succeed in their respective endeavors as Minister of Information, as Mr. President, or whatever auxiliary positions that they have right now? What should they avoid in order to succeed?
They must make sure that they avoid trying to overstay in office. I feel like leadership is something that you need to take up, but deliverables are something that you need to align yourselves with. Don't feel like you can do it alone. Consultation is something that is very much important. So let them try to avoid the fact that they can all do it by themselves. It's impossible for you to do that. The relevant stakeholders, student consultations, course reps needs to be consulted, and let them feel like they are at service to the people rather than feeling that leadership is all about a self-materialization crusade that they could have within themselves. Let them feel like they are serving and at the service of the people. They should be held accountable, and this is part and parcel of being a leader.
That's beautiful to hear from you. Mr. President, draw us through the roadmap of your first 90 days in office as president of all SOSA. What are you looking up to actualizing?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think in the first 90 days of us being in office, we want to ensure a few things are in place. I said this during the campaign and when I was on the debate platforms, that today SOSA students are in need. Most of the SOSA students are in need. While myself and few other colleagues might be okay financially to have scholarship for ourselves or be on the scholarship packages, hundreds of students are affected. Okay. And they are challenged financially to be able to thrive in academics. This is something my council would work on. Okay. Come next semester, my council would ensure that these underprivileged students are looked upon and they are supported. And the last council did, and they did tremendously well. They were able to provide students with 40% scholarship to be able to start their courses, register, and avoiding dropping out of school, but also deferring their semesters. And my council is very committed to this. As an individual who is very committed to this, just some months ago, just this semester, I was able to help a lot of students through personal connections. But now I am in council, and I'm going to do it with my council. That students who lack financial strength, we will ensure that we support these students to be able to thrive in school. Not only that, we are also going to look at a lot of partnership programs with institutions. SOSA over the years have signed a lot of memoranda with institutions. During our first 100 days in office, you said 90, I'm saying 100 days in office, okay. We are going to look at some of these partnerships, but also to ensure that this partnership reflects the aspirations and the needs of SOSA students. Okay. We will ensure that every SOSA student see themselves in these partnerships in the best interest of SOSA. That I promised, and we promised the electorates, that come next semester, the 21st Executive Council of SOSA would come with a difference. We want to thank the 20th Executive Council under the leadership of the now President Fadera, Ismaila Fadera, okay, for paving the way for us. We would want to, they have set the bar so high, and that to touch this bar, you must do extra. Okay. And that is the extra we are ready to do. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Honorable Minister for Information, landslide victory last election, landslide victory this election. Panacea, if you go to whatever Webster or whatever dictionary, panacea means a solution to whatever a challenge or problems it is. And then the opposing team, it is just an election, but also the solutionist. So your brand name, Panacea, is synonymous to the opposition brand name. How confident are we that that has not been the reasons for which one side has always been voted in? Like, okay, we have two solutions, so let us just keep up with one. How sure are we that's not been the case? Is it actually leadership by merits or just by nomenclature? Let's choose just one of the brand name that has worked, because it's just the same.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's important to note that some students would want to align themselves with political camps because of names, but the bigger student body do not do that. What they focus on is what good can this team offer. That is what they focus on. And when it comes to offering good, even though solution was there before Panacea, but when it comes to SOSA, the development and the impacts that Panacea has made, there's no single camp that has ever done it in SOSA. It is because of Panacea we were able to have all this which we were able to have. Just this year, we were able to win the Best of Association. Again, it was won by a Panacea-led council. It was a Panacea who served as president, and then we won Best of Association. This year too, we won Best of Association of the Year, we won Male Leader of the Year, and Student Female Leader of the Year, and Administrator of the Year. All these 4 categories for the first time in the history of SOSA, and it was Team Panacea that was there. So it tells you what Team Panacea does within SOSA. And that is the trust that we have earned from the people, and we would ensure that this trust will not be broken.
You've been trusted in succession, double elections, landslide. Speak to the masses, speak to the voters who gave you this amount of authority to steady affairs of all. SOSA, what should they expect from your leadership? I know Mr. President has spoken, but I want to hear from the Minister of Information to see if it aligns.
Yeah, thank you so much. Already, my president has said a lot. There's a lot that we are going to do. But to note, even though we are called honorable and all that, but we are not more honorable than those that we seek to serve. Every man is honorable. But now it is not about the titles that we have. It is about what we aim to do in SOSA. And as alluded by my president, we are going to ensure that SOSA students are going to be taken care of in terms of scholarship opportunities, in terms of internship opportunities, and a lot more. So fellow SOSANs, just know that this is the right team, and we are going to ensure that what you need is going to be catered for, and we are going to be there for you, stand by you, defend you even to the very end.
That's beautiful. Mr. Zindi Anthony Levi, you listen to this young man, he says that it's not about a title, and I subscribe to that because leadership is not about the title, it's about the accomplishment of result. How important is legacy? How important is leaving behind mark that speaks for one once he or she will have left the position of leadership? Legacy, how important it is.
In terms of social, it is very much important for them to understand that legacy has always been there. That is to say, every council that comes in tries to do better than the previous one. So I'm so happy that they have embraced that ideology that we have within the social administration. I feel like at this point, it is very much good for them to see how best they can actually pull up the yardstick in ensuring that their predecessors will feel so proud of them, and also picking up a legendary performance in terms of looking at all the different departments in within social. That is to say, if the finance minister tends to do their job properly, if hold accountable, the person will actually say, I have done my part, and with the help of the council and my team, we have already done our best to see that. I feel like the legacy that they are putting up in terms of making sure everybody tries to bring the bar up, it's a very good thing, and I feel like something that we need to accommodate for. We need to actually appreciate them for, and let them continue doing that.
That's beautiful. Mr. President, do you feel challenged for being given this landslide victory by overwhelming votes at that level of all? So do you feel challenged to offer your utmost best to the people?
Yes, the answer is yes. I feel challenged. Being someone who served, actually not in political position, but in a very independent position, Mr. Zindi might know the UTG-SU Legislative Body. I served as the Legislative Body, a member for SOSA in the 6th legislature of the University of the Gambia Legislative Body. And that was trust. It was not an electoral process that was done. I was nominated to this position by students unanimously, and then I served in this position. Having been in the legislative body and completed my tenure, Panacea approached me to lead, and that was trust. And for me, only that trust was a challenge for me to do more, and that is why I am not taking it lightly to ensure that the Constitution is respected, but also my mandate as the president of this one of the biggest, if not the biggest, association in the university. I am given the mantle to lead. I'm going to ensure that the right thing is done, but also to ensure that the challenge that they have given me, that I have accepted, is going to be fulfilled. And a lot of challenges are there for social students. You go to classes during campaign, students will tell you the challenges they are faced with. And these are the challenges we sold our policies on, and they have bought it. One of the challenges were like food. Food prices are hiking, not only in Sosa, across the university. But what can we do as Sosans, or what can we do as the leadership to ensure students do not face a lot of problem in this?
But food price is a national phenomenon.
That is it. It is a national phenomenon.
Okay.
That is why, as a council, we want to come to ensure we alleviate this from them.
You don't want to indict yourself, though, because
that is why, with the help of my welfare minister, we come with an initiative. She has a policy or a manifesto on food prices, lowering food prices. Not only because that is why we are going to initiate the Sosa Kitchen. Okay. If you are not in the field of play, you cannot decide what happened. That is why Sosa is chipping in. Okay. The council is going to initiate the Sosa Kitchen for the second time. The 28th Executive Council was able to do it, and we are trying to bring it back to ensure that food prices are brought down through the Sosa Kitchen by competing with other cafeterias and other kitchens in the university. Okay. Because if we have our own, I'm sure students are going to support. When you have our own, we are going to lower the prices. This is also going to force the other cafeterias to lower their prices. If not, we are going to take the road. Okay. So that is one of the promises we made, and is going to be fulfilled.
That's good time if fast spent. Quickly, I've been having a conversation ever since this election, and there's somebody says, okay, these people won not because of they had the requisite technical know-how. They've always won because one of the massive faculties, the Department of Development Studies, has the numbers. Is that an ill-conceived assertion, or is it based on fact and logic that because of the Department of Development Studies, you guys are massive in numbers?
I think it is ill-conceived.
Okay.
And that is a perception.
Okay.
Because no one has done any survey to say that development studies majors only supports Panacea. In fact, this election, the opponents for the solutionist camp have their campaign manager as a development major. In fact, I think the deputy campaign manager is also a development major.
So it's not based
on
facts.
It's not based on facts.
It's ill-conceived.
And yes, it's ill-conceived.
That's beautiful. Honorable Minister, time of fast, we're going to be leaving you shortly. What are your final words to those who voted you in this position? Just before we take leave of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So I would just want to say thank you. And not just thank you, but I would want to assure you people that we're going to bring in the development that you people need, and we're going to stand by you to defend your interest. We are not just going to kowtow to anything. We're just going to be your leaders, and your leaders that will stand for you even when it is very hot. We are going to be there for you.
And final words, we will take leave of you. Talk to your people who voted you.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank Sosans entirely for the elections. It was a very contested election, but it went peacefully. Whether you voted for me or not, what I appreciate about Sosans is the fact that the election is done in peace, and that is the interest for me, because no government, no executive council can work in chaos. That is why I want to thank the electorates for their maturity, but also to ensure that the will of the people respected. As I said to them when I came here the last time, I ended my conversation with a code. That is, someone who gave you breakfast and give you lunch, if he promises you dinner, you need to be sure that it's going to come. Panacea-led council promised, and then promised, when they promise again, that they are going to do it. know that they are going to fulfill.
It's beautiful having you on the show. Stay tuned. We are going to continue with Mr. Zindi Anthony Levi. But it's been a beautiful opportunity. We say congratulations to Mr. President-elect Seni M. Sahu, and not forgetting the Information Minister, Mr. Mohamed Lamin Jallo, who being obsessed with being here to make sure the first half of this show here becomes a success. We say congratulations. Make sure that the requisite democratic dividends are provided to those who elected you into position of authority. We'll take our short break, and once we return, we continue with foreign policy specialist in Mr. Zindi Anthony Levi, who happens to be residing in the United Kingdom, and he's going to be continuing with us on what we call the merit and spoils of all democracy. We'll take our break, and we'll get back shortly.
You can now turn your loyalty points into data or voice bundles. Simply dial *772#, press 1 to check how many points you've got, press 2 to redeem those points. Recharge on AfriCell, buy credit on AfriMoney, buy cash power. Lord Efrek, you get points. Even when you redeem, your total points still stack up, giving you a chance to win one of 2 luxury AfriCell villas. AfriCell, 25 years of rewarding loyalty, and we're just getting started.
Get up. Welcome back from that short break here. It was a beautiful experience in the first half of the show when we had just ended the winner of our SOSA's election at the University of the Gambia. And we're going to continue in the second half of Mr. Zindi Anthony Levi. The guy says he's a master degree holder in international relations. He's a foreign policy expert who hails from the streets of Banjul to the United Kingdom in one of the most prestigious universities. So we're going to be talking to him tonight on what I call the merits and the spoils of all democracy. Mr. Anthony, should I say Zindi Anthony Levi, welcome to the second half of the show, my brother.
Very much for having me. I'm very much delighted to be with you. And the first part of the show was very much interesting, giving the young people the opportunity to actually discuss their first ground of leadership roles that they're going to take in within the university system.
Okay.
And it's very much interesting for me to give my insight in relation to the topic at hand. And I can't wait to start.
That's great. You're young, strong, but most importantly, intelligent. And foreign policy, we know how the global politics works. And at that level, you should be far more acquainted with the rudimentary concept of all democracy. What would be your assessment of evaluation of all Africa's democracy, especially with consideration of all the assessment done by your Afrobarometer in 2024-2025, where you have 66% of all the population yearning for a continuity of democracy across the continent, whereas 38% saying that in as much as 66% of all says that that's the best system that works for us, but 38% say that it's a functioning system in our respective nations. That's an irony from a literary point of view. What's the point of reconciliation in terms of the assessment of all democracy for the continent?
There's huge reconciliation in terms of what democracy gives us and what all the alternative we have apart from democracy. I feel like the 66% doesn't have an alternative measure in relation to democracy. Is it that they're looking out to upholding dictatorship or authoritarian regimes? Those are not the things that they actually want. So embracing themselves in terms of democracy as what is the ideal is something that I'm not very much surprised with. But however, looking at the other 38%, that basically is talking about loving how democracy works. And they want to keep democracy. I feel like it is very much of a contradiction. That is to say, it is ironic in the sense that democracy hasn't actually yielded its dividends for the African continent. That is to say, the livelihoods have not been impacted. So pretty much because of people don't have an alternative measure in terms of democracy, they may tend to align with it. But however, we are looking at ensuring that democratic principles tend to provide institutions that reflect the livelihood of individuals. I feel like that is the position that I'm going to take in relation to this.
That's a great one that you're hearing from an expert for foreign policy here tonight on the Pan-African Drive here. That's Mr. Zini Anthony Levi from the United Kingdom. We informed that this edition of the Pan-African Drive is proudly sponsored by AfriCell, the best GSM service provider, not just in the Gambia, but by extension the rest of the African continent. Mr. Levi, you're saying that those who say that 66% works for them, probably they do not have alternative measure. But on the other hand, you're seeing people, 38% saying that it's a functioning system in a respective democracy, in a respective nations. And but we've seen, you know, and I know the evidence are all over the place, considering the Sahel states. They've said we've got alternative measures in Mali, like for Burkina Faso, and other nations of the continent. You see evidence of a coup d'etat all over the place. Do you subscribe to alternative measure, or do you agree with the 66% of democracy being the continuity of our government?
In terms of conflict, it is very much interesting to look at it from a different perspective. If you look at what is happening in the Sahel in the context of our discussion, we could actually say these are some of these countries where there is a low level of human developmental index. So when a polarized community in terms of political behavior feel like democracy hasn't actually given them the breeding ground to enhance economic growth, is always a problem. So pretty much they will run to the older alternative, and looking then that is to ensuring that conflict is being the order of the day, and they look forward to the military to help them to salvage them and take them to the promised land like Moses did for the people of Israel. So I'm just saying, in context, the conflict in that area is basically because democracy hasn't actually give the people the opportunity to grow economically, and they have actually lost faith in that system. So that being the case, they will actually look into other measures, and they will go to an extent of supporting the regime change through the use of force or through the use of the military. So that is the case. That is what is happening within the Sahel region.
Let me be very deliberate about your nation, the Gambia's own democratic context. If you weren't here, you must have learned, you must have read, or you must have felt either directly or indirectly what the previous leadership was all about. President, former president, former president Yahya Jammeh and current president for Adam Barrow. If you were to do a comparative analysis of the democratic space of this country, would you say that the Gambia should be or is part of the 38% that says democratic exercise work for us as a functioning system, or would you say that it is an inside opposite of the expectation of the Gambian people?
Coming from a political behavior analysis lenses, that is to say, in the time of Jammeh, we had elections,
okay,
which are very much key and essential in terms of every democratic setting. But however, in the UK, we call it the dissatisfied Democrats. I will say, indeed, there was democratic principles that were still there, but the masses were democratically dissatisfied with the system in terms of how Jammeh did whatever he did in this time of his regime. However, one of the key important parts of democracy is making sure that you educate the masses. And it was during this time that we had the opportunity to have the University of the Gambia. So I felt like the opportunity was given for the Gambian people to actually know the principles of governance. And those were some of the tenets that were actually provided for, and which was basically because the government looked forward to providing education for its people. So some of the democratic principles were still maintained. But however, looking at it to the current dispensation, that is to say, the Gambia now, we have freedom of speech, which is very much respected. But however, state institutions are still being used in terms of hindering certain democratic principles. Like, for instance, what has happened a few weeks ago in terms of Gala and what happened with them being arrested. So I feel like democracy is still in the Gambian context is still very infant, I would say. It's growing in terms of certain things, in terms of institutionalism. We're trying to improve democratic principles. Rule of law has been accepted, but also we have a long way to go in terms of ensuring that all principles in within democracy has been adopted.
When you say we have a long way to go, where are the rooms for improvement in the Gambian democratic exercise? Levi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
I just asked, you said we have a long way to go. And I'm asking, where are the rooms for improvement in the Gambian democratic exercise? I need the specifications for the general public. What are the areas that the Gambia can improve?
We should improve in terms of institutionalism. That is to say, state institutions must be part and parcel of the democratic democratic atmosphere. That is to say, they must understand that they are part and parcel of the democratic apparatus in which a state should exist, in which a state should function properly. I feel like in terms of what is happening, personalities are very much looked after rather than upholding the democratic principles that need to be upheld within the state. So it's about safeguarding certain individuals in within the state rather than looking forward to institutions that need to be protected. That's what I say. That is what I'm trying to put in the context that we have a long way to go.
Okay, that's beautiful to hear from Ilagan. Says this edition of the Pan-African Ride is proudly sponsored by Africa, the best GSM service provider, not just in the Gambia, but by extension the rest of the African continent. And we are with a young foreign policy specialist in Zindi Anthony Levi. Mr. Levi, let us take it from a national level to a regional to continental level. We're talking about the merits and demerits of, or should I say, spoils of all democracy. What's your thought on democratic exercises where elections are conducted and politicians or potential leaders fail to understand that during the electioneering process or processes, the masses have the inalienable right of choice of political parties. But once you will have won an elections as a president of a state, you're not just a president of your party. So leadership or elected position or selected position, appointed position must not only be allocated to people of your party, or people of your tribe, or people of your religion or culture. What's your thoughts on such unwholesome leadership or exercise of the spoil system?
To look at this in two folds. That is to say, let's start with the election part of our democratic processes. That is to say, elections should not just be used as a yardstick to measure how democratic a country is. It is absolutely wrong. All governments within the continent of Africa need to understand that giving the masses the opportunity to elect their leaders is not the absolute yardstick to measure how democratic a system is. And going forward, in between your question, I would say, in terms of looking at it from this perspective, after elections is just a machinery that will lead us to legitimizing a leadership within a state. And after that is been done, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that the right individuals are being selected, not even being elected, but selected. I would like to emphasize in positions of leadership to ensure that it reflects on the livelihood of their citizenry. That is to say, democratic principles must reflect on bringing jobs, bringing scholarship opportunities, bringing infrastructural development, and developing countries' GDPs, and also countries' foreign policies.
That's great, yeah. I hope you are inspired somewhere as you listen to this young man from the United Kingdom. Those following us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, or X, this is the Pan-African Drive. Mr. Levi, how risky it is for a nation to establish its functioning democracy outside the confines of our meritocracy? How risky it is if it is based on a spoils system instead of meritocracy?
It is very much. It is very much of a serious matter because I feel like if individuals doesn't have the expertise or the specialization in terms of leadership in any area, it's always a drawback. That is to say, if you look at the continent of Africa, most of the states have attained almost independence for more than 50 years. But what has been the drawback is we're just having so much of trial and error in terms of how we govern ourselves. That is to say, it's not that we don't know how it's supposed to be done, but are we doing it the right way? That is the problem. Because if you take away meritocracy in within the system, and bring what is called kakistocracy and oligarchy, and all those systems that we have in within bad governance, I will say, it's always breathing room for corruption, and that's another aspect of political discourse where tends to reflect on the development for countries, and that is the problem that most African countries are facing in terms of not putting the right people to do the job.
Do you think we've lacked the requisite legislations in terms of policies, or do you think we've lacked the requisite individuals to implementing these policies as factors that is undermining the growth and development of the African continent in terms of its meritocracy point of view? What is our problem?
I think it's both. In terms of institutions, I tend to feel like we put so much leniency in terms of institutional reforms. We're not putting so much effort in making sure institutions are very strong. Like, for instance, the independence of the judiciary should be something that we need to uphold in within our democratic settings. And that is a problem. And also, talking about the aspect of individuals, Africa doesn't lack talent, I would say, in one of my articles to reference myself. It lacks the know-how to use it. For instance, I'll give you a proper example to contextualize this statement. That is to say, a medical doctor who sits in London can actually help design a medical program for the RVTH in Banjul, Edward Francis Small Hospital, to be precise. A professor in the University of New York can actually help develop an educational program for the University of the Gambia in ensuring that we have people that can develop foreign policy measures that reflect the national interests of our countries. So you could see it's not about just the individuals. It's a collective effort that we need to put in, but making sure that institutional reform is being carried on, and also ensuring that we have the right people who can actually move forward our developmental agenda to ensure that we have sustainable development in all aspects.
If you were seated right now before the African leaders, these are deliberate questions I pose to almost all of the guests on a Pan-African Drive. If you were seated with the 54 African leaders to offer a short piece to these people in terms of cleaning up the closet and throwing out, excuse me for the expression, throwing out rubbish that they do not need and putting the requisite necessity that they need in enhancing our democratic exercise, what do you throw out of the closet and what do you put back into the closet to fix it?
It actually depends on which topic, in what aspect are we looking at it from. To start with the economic part, I would like to say, within Africa, we have a very unique property. That is to say, we have a lot of natural resources. And that being the case, the natural resources are not extracted to reflect our economic growth and prosperity of nations. So from that aspect, I would like to say that let them change the direction in which they measure a country's growth. We measure countries' growth based on GDPs, although it is okay, but it's not enough. That is to say, the livelihood of individuals need to be improved. That is to say, let us focus on Human Development Index. That is to say, how much level of education have your masses attained? How best are we putting into practice the African Free Trade Area? Are we being able to trade in within the continent to ensure economic growth for countries? Like, for instance, we have the within ECOWAS, countries within the ECOWAS region trying to enhance trade within them, because we have seen in the Senegambian context, it is very difficult for Gambians to actually take goods from Gambia to that of Senegal. This is a living reality that anybody watching out there could actually feel the experience of how economic barriers are not enhancing economic growth for these two countries, which are just very important. Also, looking at it into the political perspective, that is to say, we have had series of instabilities in within the region. I believe economic growth cannot be achieved in the midst of political instability. We have seen what has happened in the Sahel. But the root causes of those things is basically because people are very much dissatisfied with the level of democracies that they have within their states, because people are losing faith in the we are losing faith in their leadership, because they feel like the democratic principles are not giving them what they want. Democratic principles are not creating jobs. Democratic principles are not giving people the opportunity to enhance themselves. Democratic principles are not giving people a good health sector. So these are some of the things that I will surely look into, and other pressing issues. But for the sake of time, we cannot go into all those things. So I'll just look into it from the political and economic standpoint for now.
Of course, you're always going to have an opportunity to be on this platform. Like I says to you, it's an open invitation again, subsequently to be featured alongside other top African professors on this Pan-African front. But quickly, let us metaphorically translate the African governing process, African democratic process, into a pot of soup. And as a Gambian, now in the United Kingdom, you've been using the same pot of soup, using the same ingredients, and then having the same taste. Now you are in the United Kingdom, you have another pot of soup. And what sort of ingredient in the democratic exercise that you would take from that pot of soup in the UK to put in a pot of soup here in the Gambia, by extension the rest of the African continent, so that the taste becomes different from a democratic perspective, so that it tastes not just different but beautiful?
This question is very much great, because I will take it from a young person perspective. I feel like in within the, the United Kingdom, for instance, I've tend to see realities that it hasn't just shocked me, but it's something that we need to embrace as a continent itself. If the record stands right, Africa is one of the continent that has much more young people than any other continent in the world. And that being the case, we need to ask ourselves, how are we encouraging the young people into the governance processes? It is rather very sad that, for instance, the Gen Z generation have been looked at as people that don't want to enhance, we don't want to uphold democratic principle, but that's not the case. For instance, in the next few days, I'll be publishing an article that I will call the Gen Z call for democratization. And I feel like what I have realized in within here, like in the context that you have asked the question, is young people are very much partaking in what is happening in within their democratic spaces. But in Africa, the opportunity is not being given. We have seen oligarchy being the order of the day. That is to say, most leaderships are being governed by older people. And it's a very sad reality. It's not that young people are not capable, but the young people are so much interested in what is happening in the democratic processes that they're engaging in, most especially in their countries. So it is duty bound for governments in within the African continent to ensure that young people are at the core of leadership in terms of what is happening in within their states.
It is duty bound that young people on the continent of Africa get involved in the decision-making process of our respective nations. That's from Mr. Zindi Anthony Levi. And I'm afraid as we close to the end of this conversation, Mr. Levi, I will want you to just give us a concise conversation here to the masses of the game, by extension the rest of the African continent, in terms of your filtering process of our democracy in its enhancement. What should we do? What's the best way forward before we take leave of you?
I would like to say African democracy should not be a copy-paste. That is to say, what works for another country may not be, what works for another continent rather, may not be the realities of our own continent. That is to say, some aspects of it seems to be too Western. That is to say, we should look into developing policies that will reflect our national interests first. That is to say, anything that we are dealing with, we just need to look into the interests of Gambians, and not just Gambians that are present, but looking into the future, that are the young people that are going to come after us. It is very much important to look into those narratives. And also the institutionalization of state apparatus, we need to look into those things, because institutions to help a country to move from one level to another. Those are certain things that we need to look into. And most especially the economic aspects. I feel like if we go to the people to give us legitimacy through the ballot box, it is very much important that when the masses ask us questions in terms of holding governments accountable, there should be an absolute room that should be given for accountability to have a breathing space. And lastly, I would say, in every society, justice must prevail. The state apparatus or the other organs of government that is given the responsibility to ensure that laws are being upheld should be independent, and making sure they contribute to giving the masses the justice that they deserve.
That's beautiful to hear from you. Those watching from a Yoruba-speaking nation of all Nigeria, I say to you, Bao Nisha Bao Lomo Otito Jabenta. To French-speaking nations, I say merci de vous supporter. To the Gambians, I say to you, Jerejef. To the Liberians, I say Kasai Adama. To Swahili-speaking nations of all Nairobi, Kenya, and Tanzania, and I say to you, Asante Sana. To my friend Constantino Pelleteri in Botswana, I say to you in Saswana, readable hell about LinkedIn Jahaho. To Zulu-speaking people of all South Africa, I say to you, Sanibonaniam Zanzi Geya Nebengelela. This is a Pan-African Drive. It's a beautiful experience of all. Zende Anthony Levi. We're going to bring him some other time on the show so that he continues to offer his expertise on the democracy and its different exercises. And a beautiful experience with me, Tony Michael House, CKA News Socrates. Many thanks to Mr. Badi's in the control room, Mark Franklin, the sound engineer who made sure that tonight's edition of the Pan-African Drive was a success, or should I say is a success already. And salute to our viewers domestically in the Gambia and outside the shows of the nation state, the Gambia and the diaspora. We say salute on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and X. See you some other time. If you like, follow us. Bye-bye.
Scan the QR code and register on My FSL app, and boom, you get 1 GB free instantly. Just scan, download, register, and enjoy. Check your balance, browse bundles, send and receive money instantly, pay bills in seconds, anytime, anywhere.